Basement of La Penta. This is WICR.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Sports Vault. I'm your host with the most, Jersey Joe, and it is time to break down a little bit of Cleveland Cavaliers basketball. Unfortunately, not the result Cavs fans would have wanted yesterday, but we've got a lot to talk about. Houston Rockets defeating the Cavs 105-103 in overtime was a very good game. Definitely one of the best regular season NBA games this season, definitely on Sunday. But all the talk is, of course, about LeBron James and his free throw woes last night. Very, very tough loss in the game because LeBron missed both free throws, which ultimately could have given Cleveland the win. But he was just very, very bad from the free throw line yesterday. He was 3 of 11, and that's just not good. And it's interesting because it's disappointing and it's interesting because I wish the free throw woes didn't have to take away from what was a terrific performance. And LeBron was fantastic last night. Look at some of those shots he was making, just really tough shots all night. I felt like at many points during that game, it was all LeBron. A lot of guys for the Cavs not moving around. I still want to find out why Timothy Mozgov wasn't in for most of the third and basically none of the fourth quarter, because James Harden was just getting very easy looks inside. Mozgov's presence being out of that lineup really meant something. And of course, Kyrie Irving being out. But that doesn't take away. It was a terrific LeBron James performance. But those free throw woes were the reason they lost the game, basically, even with the performance he put on, which was fantastic. And it brings up the question, is LeBron a bad free throw shooter? Now, I want to preface this by saying I am not a LeBron hater. He's my favorite player in the NBA. He's one of my favorite athletes of all time. I love LeBron James. But it's an interesting question because I remember a couple seasons ago, Rick Barry was on Colin Cowherd's show, The Herd, and he said LeBron's not a good free throw shooter. And at first, I immediately disagreed. I said, how could you say he's not a good free throw shooter? But part of him is kind of correct. Now, first of all, Rick Barry is probably the greatest free throw shooter in NBA history. I mean, the guy had a season where he missed 9 free throws. Yeah, in the 1978-1979 season, he missed 9 free throws. I mean, the guy, a lot of people probably remember from him with his patented kind of very unique underhand free throws, and they were very fun to watch, but the guy never missed. And when he talks about free throws like that, I'm listening, and it's interesting because you take a look at LeBron's free throw numbers, and they're not bad throughout his career. I mean, in his career, in conclusion, he's about a 746 free throw shooting percent guy. The lowest he ever had was 698, the 712, 780, but generally he's around that 750 to 780 ballpark. Not much higher, really never gets lower. So that's not bad, and I thought the best point I ever saw LeBron with his free throws was in Miami when Ray Allen showed up. When Ray Allen showed up, he almost had a mechanical free throw setup. It was each time it just was kind of the same way, and it was like a process. It was like a machine almost. But Ray Allen kind of taught him that, and it seemed to be working very well for a while. I thought those 2 years in Miami with Ray Allen there were 2 of his best free throw shooting seasons, and that is reflected here. I mean, he was about 753 and 750, so not bad. But I think generally LeBron's not a bad free throw shooter. I think he's an inconsistent free throw shooter. When you watch him, a lot of times he'll miss the first one and he'll make the second one. Now, I've been watching LeBron about every single year he's ever been in the NBA, and if you watch him a lot, like I'm sure a lot of people do, you'll kind of see that's the trend for LeBron. He'll miss the first, and he'll hit the second one. But I don't know if I would say he's a bad free throw shooter still. I still don't think he's one of the best free throw shooters out there, but never has it crossed my mind where I felt like he was a bad free throw shooter. I think last night was just a tough situation. It was a tough spot. It is bad. I mean, look, you got to kind of put the loss on LeBron to an extent. He did have a terrific game, was making great shots, but at the end of the day, that loss is a little bit on him, and he did admit, I mean, on Instagram last night, he put up a post, but I'm not really going to put too much into it. I mean, come on, the guy was fantastic. He's phenomenal. I didn't really know what to expect from Cleveland yesterday without Kyrie in the lineup, because Kyrie really has been the guy who's kind of setting everything else in motion. I mean, he's really affecting the plays everywhere. He's been the one setting up the offense. It's kind of the dynamic duo right now. It's Batman and Robin. Kyrie Irving and LeBron James are the most important pieces for this team. Timothy Mozgov is as well. But let's talk about Kevin Love for a minute, because I think Kevin has gotten a lot of criticism this year, some of it rightfully so, some of it I felt has been unwarranted. Overall, I don't think that he's been bad. I just think he's been the one who's struggled with the adjustments more than anyone, and he is affecting the game by his presence alone. He's just not putting up the numbers we're used to seeing because, again, he's the guy who's the one you account for the less, but he's still affecting the game in many phases. But the one thing I was talking with my dad about this morning, I think it's a fair point, is he really hasn't made the money plays, Kevin Love, and I think that's fair. You did see a couple times last night in that game where he did get the ball, and he had pretty good space, and it just wasn't knocking down the shots. I feel like his three-point shot hasn't really been that effective this year. Early in the season, it seemed like he struggled with it tremendously, and it got a little bit better after that. But I think for the most part, his three-point shot hasn't really been as effective as you would want it to be. But overall, I think Kevin has played well. He hasn't played to that superstar caliber we saw with Minnesota. But, I mean, that's kind of the drop-off you expect when you're playing with two other tremendous, transcendent players. But he hasn't been bad. But I think the one fair criticism of him is he hasn't made the money plays so far. Last night would have been a good time. I mean, he did have some opportunities, but he is not. But I'm still not going to rag too hard on Kevin Love because I do still think he's the one who's making the hardest adjustment out of everyone. He is buying in on the defensive end. I mean, you could just see everyone on this team is, but he's really stepped up his game massively in that regard, from a guy who really played no defense in Minnesota to a guy now who is playing pretty good defense. Every time I watch him, he's moving his feet well. He's doing what he needs to on defense, but it's a little interesting there. But just wanted to give a little recap. And, of course, the last part of last night's game, the referees, I thought it was a really badly officiated game. They did a horrible job. In the first quarter, the first half, they let the game get out of control. They weren't calling anything, and then the game got really physical in the second. Both teams were really almost a play away from going at each other's throats. It really got bad in a couple points. And James Harden with the kick to LeBron James' groin, I think we all know at this point. And it was intentional. There's no way around it. It was intentional. Harden's got to be suspended. One game at least. I don't really care. I mean, it's not going to be that big, but he's got to be suspended at least a game because that's just kind of a low blow. You just don't do that. When you're a superstar and you're in the conversation to be the MVP to another guy who's been a former MVP, the best player in the league, you just don't do that. It's just low class, low regard, and I think Harden's got to be suspended for it. But after last night, all the talk again is who is the MVP. I talked about this a little bit on Friday, and just don't have a very firm belief in who the MVP is to this point. I think you have a great conversation between four guys. I mean, Russell Westbrook has been terrific, but the Thunder are very inconsistent. And for that reason, I just don't think you could name him. And he's missed a lot of games, which is the other reason you can't. Stephen Curry has been tremendous. He's probably the front runner to this point. Golden State's been outstanding, and he's very, very good. Harden is the one who seems to keep on getting a lot of attention. He's only missed a game this season, probably another game coming up because of the suspension. He will get one game probably, but he's been terrific. But the thing I can't put Harden on my ballot of MVP for is just he doesn't play both ends of the floor. I mean, he is not a good defender. I mean, he's not a terrible defender. I just don't know if his desire on the defensive end is always there. Scoring-wise, he's tremendous. He's the most aggressive player in the league. He leads the league in attempts at the line, and it's not even close anyone else. He's just the most aggressive player right now in the NBA. He lives at the free throw line. His offensive game is so aggressive and so good. But defensively, I just don't know, and I think the reason you've always got to look at LeBron, even with the games he's missed, is just because no one affects the game in every phase like he does. No one can guard every position on the floor like he does. Nobody can set up an offense, can do everything you need to on the basketball court. Nobody has the versatility of LeBron James on the basketball court. And that's the reason I always struggle with not giving LeBron the benefit of the doubt. Now, last year it was KD and LeBron. Between the two of them, nobody else was close. And it was Kevin Durant last year. I mean, he was just outstanding. The second half, I felt it was close after the All-Star break, and KD kind of separated himself, but it was still very close. At this point, it's definitely between Curry, Harden, and James. Now, even with a lot of people are saying they can't give it to LeBron because of the games he's missed, and I understand part of it, but part of me is also just thinks the other two guys just don't come close to doing what LeBron can on the court. He changes the game because you can't account for him. You can't stop him in any regard. On the defensive end, he's better than the other two guys. Just from a versatility standpoint, he's better than the other two. But we will see. There's still a lot of time in the season. I think LeBron has been at a different level since he's been back. I mean, he's just been obsessed. And last night, aside from the free throw, was like I said before, he was outstanding. It was a very good performance, but there still is a lot of time to see who's going to separate themselves. But it should be a lot of fun because as we get closer and closer, which we are at this point, it could be the best NBA playoffs in history. I mean, looking at the West and how deep it is, looking at the top stacked teams in the East with Atlanta and Miami and Cleveland, who will play on Friday, it could be a tremendous playoffs. I mean, look at what we had last year with the amount of Game 7s. I think we're in store for a similar type of thing. Not in the East, but I think in the West, it's going to be just as good, if not better. But that is going to do it for this segment. Might be back on later in the day to break down Juve and Roma coming up about 2:45. But that is going to do it. Everyone stay with us and have a great day.